An internal review of Defence Department security vetting has found that thousands of security clearances may have to be rechecked. The review found that procedural errors led to false information being passed to ASIO, and questions are now being asked about the vetting of security guards who work on military bases and at embassies. John Stewart reports.
Last night, the Defence Minister told Lateline that thousands of security clearances performed by the Defence Security Authority in Brisbane may have to be rechecked after an internal review of the organisation found widespread problems with its vetting procedures.
Well, I think it'll certainly be hundreds and almost certainly be thousands.
In May, 3 former Defence workers told Lateline that false information had been put into thousands of security checks to speed up the vetting process. They said that information was made up to fill in the gaps.
Sometimes they wouldn't give the city that they went to in a certain country. You just pick a city that they went to. Sometimes some would write Asia. I would choose China because it's one of the main countries in Asia.
The Defence Department said there was no problem with its vetting procedures, and Defence officials told a Senate committee in May that the false information involved a process called workarounds to keep security checks moving through the system. The so-called workarounds meant that staff had a way of working around a problem, like filling in a blank space on a security form with a phrase like fake street when they didn't know the real address. The problem was that some staff didn't know the system and false information was included at random. Lateline has obtained a letter from the Deputy Secretary of Defence, Stephen Merchant, to the Senate Standing Committee. Mr Merchant writes,
"On May 30th, I advised the committee that process workarounds used by the DSA to overcome the inflexibility of computer applications were documented and managed. However, contrary to my understanding at the time of the estimates hearing, there was no single document or instruction that recorded all of the workarounds. The controls in place to manage and record the process by which data was adjusted by staff were regrettably ineffective and in some cases non-existent."
This is really over the top. We've got embassies, we have got bases, we've even probably got ministerial security compromised, not to mention the flow through to ASIO, which the Minister has indirectly flagged.
In the letter, the Deputy Secretary of Defence writes,
"I also stated in my testimony that workarounds used by vetting centre staff were agreed and negotiated with ASIO. Again, contrary to my understanding at the time of the estimates hearing, only a small number of entries used when data was not provided by applicants were agreed by ASIO."
And then we find out that in fact ASIO has not consented to be part of the broader use of these things, only consented for a small number to be used. So clearly the workload has shifted to ASIO, and the question is, how many approvals have ASIO given on false information?
Former Defence worker Monica Bennett-Ryan says that ASIO was given thousands of false security checks, and it may now be impossible to weed out all of the fake information.
Now, the Defence Minister has stated that all of these applications need to be rechecked. This wouldn't be necessary if ASIO had been able to find the errors, and that reinforces what we said at the beginning. When the data is entered at the beginning of the process in the wrong way, then it's impossible to find it later on.
In May, the Defence Department said that only the security checks performed by the 3 whistleblowers who appeared on Lateline would have to be rechecked. But now the Deputy Secretary of Defence says
issues arising from the use of workarounds were not confined to clearances handled by the 3 contractors appearing on Lateline.
Last night, the Defence Minister said there was a low risk that security clearances had been granted to people who are a security threat. But Monica Bennett-Ryan is not so sure.
When you're talking about multiple thousands of applications that have been compromised, the risk is there. Defence say low risk, but it only takes one person.
When the government made all of these agencies exempt from freedom of information, we can't even then apply to find out how many paper clips they have in their office. And that removal of oversight from the public, from media and from parliamentarians lets things get by under cover of darkness, and that's what's going on here.
An investigation by the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security will be completed next month. John Stewart, Lateline.